I have been wanting to sit down and film this all day, and the day has gotten away from me, but I could not close out my workday without sitting down and talking about this because, this topic is kind of too important. This topic is too important, and it's very timely and extremely relevant for me because the topic, by the way, is self-abandonment. If you follow me on Instagram, if you're on my email list, you know I have been unpacking self-abandonment from quite a few different angles because I'm getting ready to teach this whole one-day intensive training on breaking the cycle of self-abandonment. Because I really believe self-abandonment is it's an epidemic. And it's a very unique epidemic because it is one that is unconsciously self-inflicted over and over and over again. And it's like, as I've been having more conversations with people about it and, folks are registering for the intensive, I'm realizing like, this is something that we have to get more comfortable facing within ourselves. This is something that we have to get way better at being able to really look at and sit with and be with and explore and examine. Because one of the things that keeps the cycle of self-abandonment active for people, and I should actually just back up for a second and just like explain how I sort of define self-abandonment and what that's looked like for me a little bit. Self-abandonment to me is what happens when we do not know how to listen to our own inner knowing and various forms of internal guidance. And as a result, we override our own boundaries. That's like the best working definition I can think of for self-abandonment is like, I don't really know how to stay attuned to me and feel for what's a yes or a no, or what works or doesn't work, or what I want, right? Or like just what I'm feeling, which is a form of internal guidance. And because I can't really decipher that within myself, I accidentally override my own boundaries. Meaning, even if something is not what I want, I will be a yes for it. Or even if something doesn't work for me, I continue to tolerate it. We abandon this wise part of ourselves that knows and can tell us when something is okay or not okay, or works or doesn't work, or is a yes or a no. And here's the thing about this, okay, is that self-abandonment is an inevitable, unavoidable consequence of just being a human. That's like one aspect of this is like, as you learn and grow and evolve as an individual, you will inevitably abandon yourself. Like you will, I look at the metaphor I always use is like, you can be someone walking a path in your life and you're like, okay, I'm like walking my path and I'm like learning and I'm encountering these different experiences and opportunities and people and places and things and I'm having to make decisions for myself and I'm on the path. And then at some point in time, this happens to everybody, you will accidentally stray from the path. You will land off somewhere in the bushes and like wake up and be like, what the fuck? How did I get here? Wait, what? I'm in the wrong relationship, or I'm working for this horrible person, this toxic boss, or fuck, I'm living in this city that I hate, or I keep finding myself in the same situation. I've landed in the bushes and I want to get back on the fucking path. I've landed in this place in my life that feels so uncomfortable and misaligned for me. How do I get back on the path of alignment? And that process, right, of being on the path, and deviating from the path and finding our way back to it is just how we grow and evolve and how we become ourselves and we come to know ourselves and discover, what our boundaries are and what our limits are. Like you have to get lost sometimes and you have to lose yourself sometimes in life in order to be able to find yourself. That's just truth. So there's an aspect of self-abandonment, of not listening to yourself or overriding your own boundaries that is kind of unavoidable, inevitable. It happens to everybody. That is different, however. That is different than a chronic pattern of self-abandonment. Like a chronic habit of consistently overriding your own boundaries, a chronic inability to listen to your own internal guidance and inner knowing. And that pattern and that habit is what I just have absolutely zero time and patience and energy for anymore. Because that pattern and habit wreaked havoc in my life for decades without me even really knowing that that's what was happening all the time. It's like I can trace any time I landed in the bushes, anytime I woke up and was like, oh fuck, what is going on in my life? Like, things are not okay. I am not okay. I can trace it back to a single or a handful of moments in time where I didn't listen to myself. I didn't do the thing I know I needed to do. I said yes when I meant no, or I over-tolerated something, or I didn't advocate for myself in some way. I lived my life in the bushes. Like, I didn't even know where the path was. I could not feel the difference between alignment and misalignment. I chronically self-abandoned in my relationships, with my work, my health, my physical and my mental health. I lost myself over and over and over again. Over and over again. And, you know, I carry no shame around this or self-judgment around this because it would be pointless for me to. Like, shame and self-judgment don't serve me and don't serve any of us in trying to like heal or recover from any type of self-destructive or self-harmful behavior or self-sabotaging behavior. Like, just doesn't help you to be hard on yourself about it. I also don't like judge and shame and blame myself because, you know, these patterns are so hugely unconscious. And this is something I really just want to I want anyone out there who identifies with what I'm talking about. Like, there are those of you who are watching this right now who are just like, oh yeah, sometimes, you know, I can see there are moments in the past where I deviated from the path, or I lost myself momentarily and then I realized it and then I came back on the path. And like, oh yeah, that's part of how I learned and that's how I learned and grew and discovered who I am. And then there are those of you who are more like me in my history, who, despite every level of awareness you can bring to a situation, or your best efforts or your best intentions, or your promises to yourself that you're like, okay, in my next relationship, I'm not gonna lose myself. Okay, at this next job, I'm gonna have good boundaries. Okay, going into this new situation, I'm not gonna abandon myself. Like, you try so hard to not fall into the habit and the pattern and to slip down into this cycle of self-abandonment, and yet no matter how aware you are or how hard you're trying, it's like you can't fucking figure it out. You chronically cannot listen or cannot follow through on the inner wisdom or guidance you receive. You chronically override your own boundaries. That's a different issue. Like, people who, and I remember, like, I'm not saying this is like, oh, you got big problems, because like, what did I share? Like, that has been my history. What I want you to know is that if awareness was enough to just fix this, it would be fixed. If you just making a promise to yourself that you're not going to do it again was enough to not do it again, you wouldn't do it. If with a pattern like this, it was enough to just go like, oh, okay, I know better now, so I'll do better now, then I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you. But that's not how the cycle of self-abandonment operates. And it's largely because self-abandonment lives in your body more than it lives in your mind. Meaning, the information and the wisdom and the insight that we're longing to be able to tap into more and make moves from more isn't up here. It's not in this like rational, logical, well, A plus B equals C place. It's this like deep well of embodied inner knowing and like intuitive genius and brilliance that is here to like guide you and support you and direct you and help you feel for what's a yes and what's no and what works or doesn't work for you. And people who cannot tune into that, or we can't hear that, or we can't move from it, it's because there's a disconnect between up here and down here. There's a disconnect between out here and in here. There's a way in which we don't know how to listen deeply enough and trust ourselves and our bodies and our beingness enough to let that information inform the moves we want to make in the world. And very often, we, again, not consciously, but unconsciously, are attached to a certain agenda or a certain role or a certain set of expectations that we think we need to fulfill that actually are not in alignment with what this deep, brilliant, genius part of us knows. You know, the most recent crash and burn in the bushes moment that I had with myself, right, was when I burnt out really bad in 2019. Like, really fucking bad. That was like a rock bottom burnout moment. And that was an example. That happened because I hadn't been listening for about 2 years. That happened because I had been hearing within myself this feedback and insight and genius that was saying, hey, you need to slow down. Hey, you need to take breaks. Hey, you need to set better boundaries. Hey, you need to protect your energy. Hey, you need to put yourself first for a change. Hey, you need all of these, like, hey, are you listening? Hey, tune in. Hey, pay attention. 2 years. And I just like could not use that information. I like heard it. It was like a faint whisper, but I couldn't fully trust it. And I was way too attached to the way that I wanted to do things and what I thought should happen and what was working for me, right? When really it like wasn't working for me, but I didn't know how to listen to my body. I didn't know how to listen to my deepest, wisest self. And as a result, you know, that, hey, listen, hey, pay attention, had to get louder and more aggressive until it erupted all over my life and created all these problems, you know, where like, I don't want this video to get like excessively long, but I had like a pretty big, extreme like health scare that like blindsided me, right? I had stuff show up in my physical body that was saying, you're in trouble. You need to slow down and fucking listen, right? The relationship that I was in completely blew up and dissolved within like a month of like these two things, right? My business, all of this stuff suddenly needed to change where I was like, oh my God, I need to figure out how I can take things off my plate and what to do. And when I look at this now, you know, like 2 years out from it, it's very easy for me to see like, oh, I really wasn't honoring myself and paying attention to myself enough and doing the things that I knew on a deep soul level I knew I needed to do to take care of myself. But I was unwilling to let go of the role that I was playing in my life and just what I'd always done that was comfortable for me and all of these things because I didn't feel fully safe to trust like this inner thing. When you don't trust you, like when you don't feel like you can make moves from your own knowing and you're just following some external agenda, expectation, role, identity thing that like you think that this is how you have to show up and what you have to keep doing and you have to say yes to, you know, to be safe, to receive approval, to be in control, whatever it might be, shit does not go well. Shit does not go well. And thankfully, you know, life will orchestrate circumstances to wake you up, to get you to turn inward and start listening and pay more attention. And part of why I'm doing this training and teaching this and talking about it in this way with all of you, like you can probably feel that this is something that like I take extremely seriously because the ways in which we have been trained away from listening to the wisdom of our body and our beingness is so harmful and detrimental, and it causes so many issues and problems that otherwise could be easily avoided. And if your life feels really hard and you're living it in the bushes and you don't even know what the aligned path is anymore, I want you to know that that's not just your fault, that that's like a byproduct of really continuously, for many of us, like being taught to stray from our knowing, and being told that we can't trust ourselves. And I'm teaching this and talking, it's like, I need people to know, I want you to know that if you identify with any of this, that there are other options. And that life doesn't have to fucking feel this way, and that you don't have to be bracing yourself for impact for the next moment, for when it's like, oh fuck, when am I gonna screw this all up again because I didn't listen to myself, or I abandoned myself, or I lost myself in this thing again and again. There are much better ways to navigate life. There's much easier ways to make decisions. There are much clearer forms of guidance and direction that are available to you. And if you want to get in touch with more of that, and if you want to tune in and you want to start listening and you want to stop overriding your own boundaries and you want to advocate for yourself in all areas of your life, that is the name of this fucking game. That's what my training, Deep Trust, is all about. And I'm so excited for those of you, who've already registered, who are feeling the call. If you are someone who struggles with chronic self-abandonment, where it's like, fuck, why is this just so hard for me? This is totally a welcome invitation to check out the registration page. We'll put the link down in the description box for anyone who wants to check it out. And feel for, if it's going to be useful to you and supportive to where you are. And otherwise, for right now, I just want to leave you just with this, like, truth of all truths, that, like, you are not alone in this struggle. And that it's also not your fault if it's really hard for you, to be able to uphold your boundaries or advocate for yourself, or trust yourself in different ways. And all I can really say is that this act of, and practice of consistently tuning back inward and listening and letting you be your source of guidance in life and in the world, like the deepest, most powerful, brilliant, genius, wise parts of you, she's not going to lead you the fuck astray. Like, I've never made a wrong turn when I was willing to really listen and heed the call. Never made a wrong turn. And that's what I'm just about teaching and preaching over here these days. So, thank you for joining me for this one. I love you. I want to do more of these. Make sure that, you're following me on Instagram, or you're on the email list if you want more updates from me. I'm loving getting to share all the unfiltered clips with all of you. Thank you for feedback on those and letting me know what lands. And I am so, so grateful for the work that I get to do in the world, and that, when I look back at all of the moments in time where, like, my hardest moments of reckoning, where I was like, fuck, I did it again. I screwed it up again. I lost myself again. I made the wrong choice again. I truly wouldn't take any of it back, because it has landed me back in this spot of so much more supreme trust and respect for myself. And that is something now that can never be taken away from me. Ever, ever, ever. And, and it's something that I believe is available to every single human. So, check out the link down in the description box. Learn more about Deep Trust, and know that I've got your back, and I see you, and I love you, and I look forward to connecting again, hopefully very soon.